It's 13 to 8.
On 2DU Breakfast, it's Tech Talk.
Goodness me, how are you?
Bad starter someone's got there. TikTok.
TPG. Now, this was bubbling along for a while, wasn't it, Matty?
Yeah.
It was sort of in the wings. It was trying to desperately get traction, and it did.
Well, it's interesting because there's a bit of a history there where TPG and Vodafone said that we should merge together to be a larger third telco provider in Australia. The ACCC said no. We believe that there's more competition to be had with TPG and Vodafone as two completely separate entities. Huawei weighed in on the picture then because TPG was going to use Huawei to build a fourth mobile phone network, which may well have been good for consumers with another mobile phone operator, but because the Australian government has banned Huawei, then TPG and Vodafone went back to the ACCC and said, hey, we're not going to be able to build that mobile phone network now. It's going to be too expensive with other operators, so we want to merge. So that went on for a while, and finally...
Rod Sims said, okay.
They've got the green light. So TPG and Vodafone have now officially merged. It's called TPG Telecom, so that's the new entity, and effectively it takes Vodafone's mobile operations and combines them with TPG, who've traditionally been in landline operations, to form a telco that'll be a traditional telco with landline and mobile.
Now, that just went all over me.
Sorry.
Okay. The thing is, why should I worry? Why does this matter? It all comes out of one tree, isn't it? There's only one provider of telco in this country, isn't there? NBN.
With landlines, yes. With mobiles, no. So there was another decision by the ACCC last year where Vodafone and Optus went to the ACCC and said, we should be able to all share towers, all share the telecommunications equipment, because that will make it better for Australians. And I agree that it would have made it better for you and I, but Telstra said, hold on a second, we've invested just a few $1 billion here in our infrastructure for mobiles, we don't want that to be shared. So that went along for a while, bubbled along for a while, and eventually the ACCC said, no, each carrier must build their own mobile infrastructure, so their own towers. So for example, in Dubbo, where it becomes bad for a consumer, in Dubbo, we've got multiple towers with Telstra, Optus and Vodafone. You drive 15 kilometres out the Parks Road, you lose all reception.
Absolutely,
so that's where the argument was to have shared towers, but I also understand Telstra's argument that if you have shared towers, all that infrastructure they've invested in is just out the window.
Mathew Dickerson, I'm going to be really simple here. All I want to do is make and send texts and calls.
Yep.
Why do I have to switch? I mean, is switching a telco sort of a ponderous event like we do banks? We are reluctant to switch banks or go for a different bank to get a better... I can't be bothered. You know, I've been with this bank for 30 years. I've been with this particular telco provider for years. Why would I bother switching?
Well, there's two parts to that. One is, you're right, I think people do tend to stay with the provider that they're with. They've established some trust and relationship there. And sometimes they'll be driven away because some experience is poor, or they might be attracted by another offer. But the really good part for you and I as consumers is, while we've got three competitors and strong three competitors, then all of them will try and improve their game. So whether you're with, it doesn't matter which one of those three that you're with, the other two will be trying to take you away, to entice you away, therefore create better offers. It might be better coverage, it might be better pricing, more data, whatever it might be.
Coverage is the thing in our area, isn't it?
Coverage is the thing in our area, that's right. So whatever it might be, they're all trying to compete and to entice you away, and so they're all going to improve their game. If we had a monopoly where we just had one mobile phone provider, which we did have 30 years ago, then there's not the same pressure on them to improve themselves all the time because, well, who are they competing with? No one. So competition in our open market is a good thing generally because it makes everyone better.
Okay, gadgets are the game, isn't it?
Gadgets are the game.
That's what it is.
Getting gadgets connected, I think, is the real game. And there's so many things that are being connected. And when we talk about what's being connected, we talk about a thing called the Internet of Things, IoT. And that means...
that's a word?
That's a term, Internet of Things.
Me. Internet of Things.
Internet of Things, that's right.
IoT, not the Game of Thrones.
No.
An Internet
IoT.
of Things.
And the idea is, with the Internet of Things, is that lots of, get ready for it, things are going to be connected to the internet. So it kind of makes sense. But you get things now like cars. My car sitting at the front of our studio, or your studio, sorry, not our studio, of your studio here, is connected to the internet. I can connect to that from wherever I am in the world on the internet and turn the air conditioning on or check what speed it's going if one of my kids is driving.
Know where you are.
Exactly right.
Call it overseas. This hacking stuff, does that worry you in your car?
Well, it's a concern not just in your car, for everything. Once you get Internet of Things, you've got so many devices connected, then someone hacks you or your devices, then they can see so much about you.
Can TPG Vodafone block that?
the telcos are really there to provide a transmission tool. So they're like Australia Post, if you like. They're providing a tool to get from A to B, the signal. What's in that parcel, what's in that envelope is not their business. So they're basically, their job is to take a signal from A to B, and what's in that, in other words, if it's someone trying to hack or get into something, then that's not their main focus. Their main focus is to get that message across.
I like buying Aussies. TPG Aussie?
TPG has got a mixed background. It was started many years ago as an Australian company. It's been merged over the years. It's basically Total Peripherals Group is what it stands for. And
what is it?
Total Peripherals Group.
Total Peripherals Group.
Yeah, and so it started off really...
Is it an instrument of things? Or...
No, it's basically a merger of a bunch of companies over the years. I couldn't even tell you all the companies that have merged to form TPG. It was started off by an Australian businessman. He was...
David somebody.
Yeah, David Tear started it many years ago. So where is it owned now? That's a really good question.
They've got the headquarters in Ryde.
They are headquartered here, but there's a Vodafone part of it, which obviously Vodafone's UK based. There's a Singaporean part of it, so there's some Singapore shares in there. I'd have to go and get the share register out to see exactly where the ownership is, but it's like so many companies now, they're international in terms of their exposure.
As I said, Mathew Dickerson, what I want to do is make and receive calls. Might be some things I want to play on the internet or whatever, Google Maps and the like. I gather all of these companies that we've got on the planet now do this stuff. So why TPG? So what?
And again, that's the real issue here is about that driving competition. It's recognised everywhere. It's not. Is it
money?
Well, no. It's just about trying to make sure that you've got a large enough company that they can then compete with the likes of Optus and Telstra. Right. And it's widely recognised. I'm not telling you secrets here. Telstra's got the best coverage in regional New South Wales and regional Australia. So, unfortunately, for Optus and TPG Telecom, they recognise that. So sometimes they compete more in the metro markets. They try and put their coverage and their competition in, because if you look at Sydney, you've got 4.5 million people. You come to our region here, you've got 130,000 people. So it's easier for them to try and make a dollar in a Sydney or a Melbourne. But I think once you get the size of TPG Telecom, they might start to look at more regional areas, and again, that just puts more pressure on Optus, on Telstra to keep improving that regional coverage. Yeah. So you and I, as consumers, we win because we get better coverage.
Well, you mentioned you've only got to go 15 minutes out of town, and that's it, dead.
Yeah,
so are these any better, this company, this TPG?
Well, at the moment, no, but...
Because there ain't no tower up there.
That's right, and this is where that larger company will give them more power and more dollars to generate the amount of capacity that they might need. So, for example, Vodafone by themselves might not have ever looked at putting coverage between Dubbo and Parks. Yeah. But TPG Telecom, a bigger entity, might say, well, there's a bit of exposure there where we could possibly get into the market. If we cover those highways better, we might be able to better cover those, and we might get more customers. Then Optus and Telstra say, well, wow, if TPG Telecom's building more towers, we better build more towers as well. So that competition improves it for everyone.
So what would make me switch to what I'm on now to TPG?
Look, again, there's so many options, Richard. It's we could do a whole morning on the different options. It comes down to the calls that you get. Do you like calling overseas? Do you want to just call in Australia? Back in the old days when we could travel overseas, what were the overseas travel plans like? Some had better than others. What are the coverage areas like? I mean, I think the main thing that I see from people is coverage.
Yes.
And then the other things fall in. There's no good having the best features and the best pricing if you can't use your phone.
That's it.
So the coverage really seems to be the number one issue there. But again, you've got lots of other features where people might want to use some of those different data amounts or the different features that are on there.
Lock-in stuff is also a bit of a sticky point for me. I don't want to be trapped in a plan for 2 years or something if something else comes along in the meantime.
Yeah, I think the carriers are getting much better at that now. It used to be that, exactly as you said, you were locked in, so you might want to change, but because you've got a contract there, and then you're an unhappy customer because you're stuck in that contract. Most carriers now are saying, no, we won't lock you into a contract. If you're paying off a phone, sure, you've got a certain contract on that paying off of a phone, but if you want to get out early, just pay off whatever's left on that phone and go somewhere else. A bit like a bank loan, just pay it out and move to another bank. And so it's much easier to change around carriers these days.
So think twice, or what's your advice on TPG?
My advice really is just to have a look at all the carriers. Just treat them as the old third carrier they were.
But also be aware, Matt, that you're the boss of your phone.
Yeah.
Because many say, oh, I just better do what they,
Well, one of the greatest things that happened many years ago was number portability. So that in the old days, you had a number that was an Optus number or a Telstra number, and the prefix, it was 0414 was a certain prefix with Vodafone, for example, and 0418 was a Telstra prefix. You were stuck with that prefix. If you were to change carriers, you had to change your phone number, which was a major drama, obviously. Whereas now, mobile number portability, you can change around carriers and please yourself as to where is going to give you the best coverage and experiment. You say, oh, gee, I've got Telstra now, they're great coverage, but I've got this really cheap deal. Try out an Optus one for a week or two and see, the coverage isn't as good, I'll go back to Telstra. So you've got that flexibility now.
Yeah, make up your own mind. Mathew Dickerson, thank you, mate.
Thanks, mate.
On 2DU Breakfast, it's